Hello.
Exactly.
Sorry, we're a couple of seconds late. We got waylaid
I'm not
talking
going to
about
tell you what we
talking
were
about my muff. I'm not going to
I
leave it
literally
lie.
said, I'm not going to tell you what about.
No, I'm gonna.
You went about
I
my
mean,
mum.
look, it's well. Do you know what? I'm not going to tell you what we were talking about, but we were discussing it. But do you know what? Before we even, it's clearly I should just hop straight in, shouldn't I? Because I've already talked about my muff. Friends,
Hand muff, everybody. Like in
yes,
the old
it's
days, in the old times.
welcome, friends. I'm seeing lovely people coming in saying hello. Kathleen, no tiny microphone today because we are only on the YouTubes. However, tiny microphone is here. So if it makes you feel better, I can hold it. It will serve no purpose, but as a kind of comfort blanket and a mascot of our events, maybe I'll just keep a hold of it. I quite like gesticulating with it.
Yeah.
Friends, welcome. It's Wednesday, the 12th of July. It's just gone 8:15. Today we are only on the YouTubes because it's just me and Catherine and we can't manage 2 platforms by ourselves. We've been left unsupervised once again.
I think I've got a feeling it's going to be.
I've got a feeling it's going to deteriorate quickly. So I'm going to hop straight into the disclaimer. We called this History After Dark because when we made it, it was winter. It was dark then. Now it's summer, but we think it still fits because we like to talk about history. We like to impart historical knowledge and facts. We like to do it whilst also being able to use 4-letter expletives and talk about, general smut, innuendo, and have just a lovely time as grown-ups. With that being said, if you happen to be in an open plan office with a judgmental boss, this is the time to put a headphone in. If you are in a car, a lounge, a kitchen with a small child, we'll call that child Timmy. We have merch. Timmy is a problem because Timmy is the kind of child that hears something just the one time and it will be a depraved thing because that's what we do. And Timmy will then take that depraved comment, lock it away in the mind palace, not say a thing to you. Take that like a little gift, like a Kinder Surprise, which are different in America because you're not allowed the ones we get. Take the Kinder Surprise in to school and then ask their new teacher. In my mind, the new teacher looks like Miss Honey from Matilda. Miss Honey will then break the first rule I've had because she's a lovely lady. She doesn't watch us. She's a proper good girl who wears frocks and stuff. And so she will then hear this thing and think, well, I better Google it. First if you don't know what it means, don't Google it. It's not for you. That's the first rule I've had. So then she will have heard this and learnt it, and then she will be traumatized and the school will ask for you to pay for her therapy because you broke it, so you've got to fix it. So if you don't want that embarrassing conversation to have with Miss Honey and you don't want to have to pay for her therapy, then I suggest you put a headphone in. Alternatively, you can watch on the playback here on the YouTube. I say that there's a very, very high percentage chance that
There's
this
been a couple of close calls recently, to be fair.
it's gonna, and now it's the two of us. We are in trouble, baby. So there's a very high chance that we may at some point say something that is so unspeakably depraved that it cannot be allowed to stand and we have to yeet it into the sun. Other rules that we have, please God, you're all adults, but nevertheless, at no point do we condone any of this being a drinking game. You do you, boo-boo, but it's not on us. And the next and final rule, I believe, until we make up more and I add them in, is we will never kink shame you. You do you, but don't ever involve people in your kink without their consent. If you're going to do kink, consent is key. So those are the rules thus far.
You say about the kink shaming. I saw a video yesterday where one of the people has to dress as E.T.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not. It was weird.
Well, baby, no one's asking you. You weren't invited.
Well,
if they like it, if they like it, Catherine, considering I'm gonna sell your feet on OnlyFans so that we can purchase this Winnebago, you are in no place to talk. I've already told Catherine no feet for free on the internet. Oh, that's another rule probably. No feet for free on the internet. Because I'm gonna sell her feet so we can purchase a Winnebago to torment her in. Delightful.
I mean, in terms of things you could sell, pictures of my feet could be a lot worse. Pretty pick, what videos are you watching, Catherine? It was genuinely involuntary. So there's this group that I try to invite Kat to on Facebook. I don't think it worked. It's called the Morning After Party. And a lot of the memes and stuff I get, actually, apologies, I haven't been putting much on close friends, but a lot of the absolute sort of randomness and depravity that goes on close friends I get from that group. But it's closed. So, yeah, and it was in that. Another great recommendation for Facebook groups, the Department of Petty Rage. That's a good one.
Oh, I tell you what. Friends, I'm just gonna we've done the disclaimer, so I'm just gonna spill the beans. I'm gonna be a little bit verbally slow and I'm gonna stumble over my words because Shark Week is approaching. It's never a good time. Makes me drop stuff with my hands and my mouth. That sounded dirtier than I intended. Okay, we're gonna go with it. So I am all about the petty rage. I am a furious George. I'm not curious George, I'm furious George. So that, with that being said, anybody in the comments, today is not the day to test me because I'm telling you here and now, if you fuck around today, you will find out. Just as a little heads up there.
People, I still wrote we make a Discord server. The thing is obviously we've got to manage that, so we're not saying no, but I'm just wondering what the actual fuck would happen if we had a Discord server.
And also, my understanding is
that would take some severe management. That would.
My understanding is that, Catherine, you're the only one out of the three of us that knows how Discord works. That means you would be managing it, because I don't understand. Jem, yes, Furious George could be any one of the four Georges. Correct. Correct. Maybe it was their Shark Week too. Who knows? Who knows? Today, as it's the two of us, we were thinking about what we should do. And the decision was made. We were going to talk about history, unsurprisingly, but really,
it's very original.
I've solved that well, haven't I? Jesus. What we were going to talk about was the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Jesus either.
Well, no, that's not for here. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. What we love about doing the stuff we do professionally, so unprofessionally, as it frequently turns out. What we love about this community, what drives us a little bit up the wall.
There might be some tea spilt. There might be some tea spilt, actually.
There might be some. We've got to be a bit careful, but there might be some tea spill. But also, we want to know what you like about being in the community of, I suppose, what do we call it? Public history. So
in that case, what's private history?
Well, as opposed to history in the academy. Public history.
Oh, okay.
Is books that are published for and sold on Amazon. Academic history, books are published that only go into libraries, and if you try and buy one, it's 240 quid a copy.
Bargain.
That's the difference.
Okay.
So that's what I mean by public history, as opposed to the ivory tower.
Liz, private history equals yeet worthy. That's what I was meaning. Private history, I was thinking private history.
Oh, history of the privates. Tales from the Fox Den. I like that we all time travel together. That's a really nice. That's a really nice way of putting it. I like that. Let's start positive, and then we'll
which implies it's going to plummet from there on in.
We'll shift gear, because when we start complaining, we know what we're like. When we start complaining, we'll be here all day. So we'll start with the things that we love, and I think that the fact that we all time travel together is a big one. What about you, Catherine? What do you love?
Oh, how I'm trying to. Oh, you've put me on the spot. Even though I've been thinking about this.
Okay.
I think I've worked. One of those people that's worked in. I've had a number of different jobs and done quite a few different things. So I've done palliative care. I've done various types of mental health. I've done forensic mental health. So I've worked in like locked environments. I've worked in cafes and restaurants, and I've taught fitness in lots of different places. And so I've had quite a few career paths, if you like lots of different stuff. And I've kind of ended up here by mistake. I still sometimes go, I'm not quite sure how I'm here. But
I've arrived by accident and I'm a little bit
yes,
afraid.
it is genuinely a little bit like
Fair.
that. I suppose I didn't do much history at school, and it was never really something I learned. I'm very much a humanities person, though. And I just find that it just gives us access to, we all look for distraction or escapism or something that isn't what we normally see and do around us. But this has that, but at the same time it's real, so it gives us insight into people and events and how we end up with the societies that we have and the things that we have and the traditions and all of these things. So every single little thing that's everything that's happening right now has been shaped by everything that's been before. And that's quite a monumental thing. So people say, well, I don't like history, it's boring. Well, first of all, you're wrong. But secondly, maybe you're just approaching it wrong, or you should be here with us. You know, it can be, the way it's been presented, certainly traditionally, can be seen like that. But I just feel it gives me 1,000 other worlds and a different way of looking into, you know, my first degree is in psychology, my sociology, my second degree is in psychology. So for someone who studies society and people, your history puts all of that together in a lovely bundle. But it's almost like different countries in a way, because it's all so different. The landscape changes, the people change, the events happen, but they also don't change. You see the same thing. Nobody learns from this shit, but you see the same thing. But I do find maybe some people, like everything, some people are just drawn to some things and some people aren't. So some people have a particular type of music whilst others don't. Some people find humanities difficult, but you know, and some people find more literal things like science and mathematics. And so we're all different for all sorts of different reasons. I find generally history is quite a warm community to work in. I think we are considered quite geeky and a little bit nerdy, but I quite like that. I think, you know, and also because we're not also a massive community, especially to work in, it's not a huge world. And so you don't tend to be near your friends, so it's allowed me to make friends all over the world and come into contact with people I never would have done otherwise. But it does, this is possibly a bad attitude, but it does give me a feeling of being a little bit special, that I'm part of this world, and this it's not massive group of people really in the grand scheme of things. Makes me feel a bit kind of like I've got a tribe, if that makes sense. And the same we are, but and also people say that and you tell them something, they go, wow, that's amazing. You go, yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of that definitely sort of chimes with me. I think I really enjoy, particularly when you're walking through historical places, the history where it happened, so to speak.
Yeah.
There is that notion that people very, very like us, but at the same time not, lived out their lives in those spaces, and some of them left an impact on the world that is felt down the generations. But alongside them, keeping them fed and their clothes washed and their babies breastfed were people who, in many cases, their names we don't know, who are the backbone of that community and that society. I think that doing that sort of looking into the past and looking into people and what motivates them, that kind of almost sociological, psychological view of history, I think what it does is there are moments where we are confronted with that phrase, the past is another country, they do things differently there. And at moments that will feel wholly true. It will feel so alien and so culturally distinct from us. But then you'll walk around a corner or you'll open a door figuratively, and you'll be confronted with somebody who is experiencing something that is just so radically human and so ineffably connected to just the experience of personhood. And in those moments, the past is absolutely not another country. There is almost a complete bleed through the ages, because ultimately, for as long as there has been recorded history, human beings haven't actually evolved that much, like mentally, in terms of physical needs, in terms of being social creatures. So when you think about it that way, at our core, at our root driver, there are a few things that are going to supersede other, I think, cultural inputs. And those are things like food in our belly, the safety of the people that we love, and the hope of a better world for our children or the children that we love. And that is something that is as true in the first century as in the 21st century. And doing that kind of work, doing that study, and one of the reasons why I think history is important and should be really promoted both in schools but also in universities, is because it does two things. And both of them, I think, make for better citizens. The first thing it does is it demands of students that they think critically. They have to approach sources, numerous sources, and assess them for veracity, for bias, for all sorts of things, to put them within their historical context and try and think how reliable this source is. Nothing can be taken on face value. Having people in your community who are highly skilled, highly trained critical thinkers means that your community, and particularly the pursuit of democracy, as we wish, I think most of us would wish it to be, an educated, reasoning electorate is what we need for a democracy to flourish, I believe. And that is the humanities, I think, help us to get there.
Which is probably one of the reasons why they're being grossly underfunded. But that's
I mean, look, you said it, not me. You said it, not me. You said it, not me. But yeah, you don't. The people who enjoy essentially having serfs aren't going to educate you for 18 years so that you can overthrow them. Do you know what I mean? The other thing I think history particularly teaches is empathy. If you can find ways to put yourselves in the shoes of people who walk in the past, in that foreign country of the past, think about how that empathy spreads out. Think about it's like it's a radical empathy. And I think that again makes for better citizens. But those are, I mean, obviously I have a vested interest. I love history. I think it's the best thing. I think it's the nuts, mate. But I think those things are true. I'm gonna you talk. I'm gonna look at comments.
So professional. There's lots of them. I think, yeah, one of the things that struck me there was when you were saying was that people say, oh, a misconception about certain things about emotions and stuff in the past, because you'll hear people say things like, oh, they had lots of children because lots of their children died, so they were just used to it. No.
Yeah, they didn't love that.
You never go, oh, well, I'll have 20 because only 7 will survive, but it's fine. I'll just have another one. No, just because that was life, it doesn't mean that it was still not devastating. So I think sometimes we also talked about, we have those sorts of misconceptions, but things like people discussing, and I know it's so easy to come back to Anne Boleyn, so I'm not trying, it's just because it's one that I'm sure pretty much everyone here and watching later, I think, will have heard, is, well, she deserved it. Well, first of all, this is the narrative that comes from believing that Anne was guilty of what she was accused of in terms of the adultery and so forth. But no, she didn't. He cut her head off. He cut her head off. It was a judicial murder. No, she left behind this tiny child. Like, but I think it's that thing that it's so far removed from our time now, what we do, how we look at things, etc., etc., that it's easy to be a little bit blasé about it because, do you know what? I hope this isn't upsetting for everybody, but a few years ago, and I can't remember the chap's name now. I can see his face because his photograph was on the television quite a lot. It was an English chap, and he was captured somewhere and they beheaded him. And it was a really big international story. And people were obviously upset and horrified about this. Well, it happened then. So why can you sit around and go, well, you know, but then when it happens now, it's terrible. Because like you said, we like to think we've evolved, but how much have we? Because, you know, we like to think we're better than that because we wouldn't do that now. All that's happened, I think I've said this before on an old episode of this, all that's happened is that we have found different ways of being shitty to one another. That's it.
Yeah.
So what is more socially acceptable at the time? The other thing is, in terms of critical thinking, I bumped into somebody I hadn't seen for ages today, and we were chatting, and she was asking what I was doing. And she said, oh, I wish I'd done history. We were talking about our kids picking their GCSEs. And she said, oh, I wish I'd done history now rather than geography, because with geography, I had to go and with history. You just have to like learn a load of stuff and write it out. And I didn't want to get into this massive debate in Tesco, which is a bit like a supermarket, if you don't know, if you're not in England, in the UK, sort of middle of the range supermarket. That's possibly being a bit generous. But you know, and I was like, well, it is a bit like that. Like you have to learn the names of things, and I suppose this is maybe one thing. There is that conception of history, and I suppose to a point, it's right, because I think it's only more recently people are encouraging people to be as critical of what they're reading and as so analytical of what they're presented with, as you were talking about just now. I think for most people that more recent realization that it isn't just about regenerating the dates and the people and what the charter meant. It's actually going, well, hang on, why do we only know this bloke had 6 wives? How do we know so little about these women? Or we just be told, you know, that's the one that wouldn't go, that's the one that deserved to have her head cut off. Oh, that's the angelic one. That's the ugly one. That's the slutty one. And that's the one that was left over. You know, and so it's like in 6, where she says, you know, I exist as one of 6. Without him, I disappear. So I think this analysis that you described has got much better in the last couple of decades, probably. Before, I think most people literally were just presented with a stack of facts to reproduce in an examination. You know, in this year, this king married this queen, and then they had 4 sons, and he went to war in Flanders, and you know, and there wasn't that kind of, well, why do you think this happened? What were the motivations for that? How did this affect the populace? Who's written that thing that we've written? Why have they written it? What problems could there be with that? Who was behind them? Who was payrolling it? What could be missing? Why could it be missing? There's 100 reasons for that. What can we know? What can we not know? Why? And you know, that I think is really coming to the front.
I think there's been a shift in the humanities in that way in general. You know, I think that previously art history was very much about what wood is this painted on? What is the material that is used to do the painting? Like, it's very like highly focused on the object of the art and its almost chemical composition. That stuff is certainly fascinating for sure. And I think you're right. History, there was a lot of it was very battley. It's a lot of battle.
It was
a lot of tactics.
I know a lot of people that is history, but it is a bit dry if it's not your thing.
I think what we have to bear in mind is that history and all education is a design, particularly in young years, is designed as a tool to create the people that you want to create. So why is it valuable to look at the chemical compositions of pieces of art? Well, that's how you figure out provenance. That's how you figure out that something's worth its money. That's all of those kinds of things. Why is it valuable to learn about battlefield techniques in the early part of the 20th century? I wonder why. Why do we want to know about crossing the fucking Rubicon in the early part of the 20th century, etc., etc.? And similarly with English literature, there are whole hosts of doctoral theses on punctuation in the first folio. Very technical, grammatical, linguistic analyses, whereas lots of English literature now, particularly in the UK, is about analysis of feeling, historical context, what it's referencing, what other texts it connects to, and so we are all of those things. We are. And I think we have to talk about the fact that a lot of that's happening because we are studying in a post-psychoanalytical world. So the study of art history, literature, pre-psychoanalysis is it's a very different history. And so that's quite interesting. Let's have a look at some comments, shall we? So we have got, this is way back. Amanda loves watching Had. It's like having a chat with your friends and talking about how you really feel about history and different people in history. I think that's the kind of like, we have a nice time being a little bit colloquial.
I think that is like Amanda's saying, and I think a lot of people feel that it's just because so many people see history as kind of a bit of a way it's presented is a bit of a dirge, or it can be. And I'm not saying that they should open us up into schools, because I'm not sure that's a good idea. But I think it helps keep it sort of relevant to people, really. And documentaries and books and all these things are wonderful. Everything has a place, because there are still so many misconceptions about history. I think finding a new way to present it. I'm not saying that everything we do is entirely original. You've got things like drunk history, and horror. I know this is for children, but horrible histories is a little bit of a different way of doing it, because they're using blood and snot and poo and things like that, which always appeal to small children without fail. It's like, if in doubt, mention parts.
Let's not just throw children under the bus. Bearing in mind, I work at the Tower of London and Hampton Court. It is fully grown adults that want to talk to me about Henry VIII having his bottom wiped, where they do a shit. Like, let's be very clear. It isn't just kids that want to talk about torture dungeons and execution and where people poo. That is the human condition from cradle to fucking grave, babe.
If you've never watched Horrible Histories, there's lots of clips of it on YouTube. It's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah,
it really, really, truly is.
I'm going to keep going through some comments. I'm just going to.
So people just enjoy not being serious sometimes as well.
Andrew's getting her BA in history. You're interested in the Civil War in the US. Not something I know masses about.
No, me neither.
And you are subscribing to learn more about history of our country and people who do stuff on World War II. Excellent.
See, that's not, after about the Georgians, I start to get a bit less interested.
Oh, I'm quite interested by World War II. I'm quite interested by the Blitz, but then that's because one of my things my grandfather taught me about was the Blitz, and also my grandma. Well, both of my grandparents were living in London during the Blitz.
Yeah,
I mean, my grandma was evacuated because she was 14. She was evacuated to Brighton, but she decided she didn't like it. So she was like, I'm going to get on a train back. So she did. And I've told this story before. I don't know if I've told you, Catherine, but I will now. So my great-grandparents ran a fish and chip shop. And when my grandma rocked up, her dad went, well, if you're here, you're going to work. Bearing in mind, my grandma got extra rations because she was so malnourished. She got extra like powdered egg because she was so skinny and like rickety or whatever. So what her dad, when the air raid siren would start going off, her dad would start bundling up like cotton chips, place and chips, whatever, into this pallet. He'd put his fishmonger's coat over it. He'd give it to my grandma, and he'd send her off down the tube station. For those of you who don't know, the tube is the underground here, which I think Metro or Subway,
Yeah.
which is a newspaper and a sandwich chain also. Never mind. But my grandma told me that on some occasions, the bombs would be falling close enough that like the blowback, the sort of shrapnel blow, was coming so close to her that the coat was being blown off of the fish and chip.
Wow.
So, you know, weirdly as well, the first time she met my granddad, who he was a lot older than her, and at that time married to another woman, had a daughter, but she ran off with a Canadian airman. So I've got family in Canada because of that. And essentially, there was like a shell, a bomb that fell onto their electricity lines or some such phone lines. I don't know, some lines. It was hanging in the air. And so my granddad, because he had a heart condition, wasn't signed up to the war, but he was home guard. So he was like Dad's army. Don't kill him in name, Pike. That was my granddad. So he was in my grandma's back garden when he was like a man in his 20s, late 20s, early 30s, and she was in her teens. So that's really weird. And then they met much later at a dance, and he lied about his age. So she was like, well, in for a penny, in for a pound.
We're here now.
We've done it now, haven't we?
Isn't they evacuate? We see, my dad was 4 when Second World War broke out, so he did remember a reasonable amount about it. And his parents, he grew up the best part of his life in Liverpool, and his parents wouldn't let him be evacuated, so he was there. Or his father fought in the war, but yeah, he was
Liverpool
there.
got hit pretty bad.
So
Liverpool got hit bad as well.
Yeah, well,
it was like all of the docks were like obviously targets. Pretty big.
In terms of quality of parenting, all I'm going to say is I hope I'm breaking some cycles. That's all.
Well, what I will say is let's sort of flag up that evacuees did not all. It wasn't all cookies and sunshine.
Yes.
There were people who had children essentially forced upon them that didn't want those children. It was not everybody. It wasn't fucking bed and broomstick for anybody or everybody is what I'm going to say. There were individuals, there were families that took on more and more kids to essentially have unpaid labor. Like it wasn't all good.
So
Pretty
the
Pick
children were horrendously abused. Good Night, Mr.
Absolutely.
Tom. That's a good novel.
And TV show, I think.
No,
it's
TV
show,
a young lad who's an evacuee. It's sad. Yeah, don't read it. It's sad. Actually, it's kind of a bit happy in the end, but it's only happy because what happens in the end happened because of all the shit that came before.
Yeah. Pretty Pick. Anyway. I love the fact that you're starting a career in the archival field. Archivists are manna from heaven. An archivist is an archivist who wants to work with historians and wants to hang out with historians. We love you, because you know where the cool shit is.
Truth.
We'd be there in our like little happy seat, just trawling through documents. We need an archivist to go, guess what I've seen? Guess what I found? Come and have a look at this. We love an archivist. Thank you for joining the forces of goodness.
Cool kids.
Leonda, I love the broader and deeper perspective you have because of current events, because of history. That's an excellent point. And sometimes, and this might sound weird, because there's two sides to this for me. On one hand, when I'm feeling I'm a person with diagnosed mental health problems, and some of those mental health problems include anxiety. And when I'm feeling particularly unwell in that regard, about the state of the world, and it all feels a little bit much frequently. I do remember that there were times, many times in the past, where people must have felt just so destabilized and so concerned about what was to come. And while I don't enjoy that for them, there is a solace in thinking, well, do you know what, the humanity endures. Ultimately, society will find a way, and it might be revolution, and that might be painful, and all of the rest of it. There might be some struggles. There might be a lot of struggle and suffering. Like, I don't think that living through the terror of the time of the French Revolution, anybody would volunteer as tribute for that. But the human condition, human society does find a way to cohere once again into a recognizably functional force that isn't, just guillotining people in every public square. That has its time, and that time passes. I wouldn't want to live through it. Let's be clear.
Yeah, I think I'll leave the
Let's
French
be clear.
Revolution if that's all the same to everybody else.
But equally, I think then the flip side of that is that it's very comforting to allow yourself to delve into that sense of belief that it's all been fine before. But in many ways, and frequently, the reason why it ended up being fine is because a lot of people took a lot of action that endangered themselves. There's in the world in which we live, and in the climate of conversation in which we live, and there are frequently thrown around, I'm sure we've all seen it, the dude in Germany in the early part of the 20th century, who I'm not going to say his name because I know that it will get massively flagged. We know who I mean. Dodgy little moustache, absolute fucking asshole, as we all know. I have a massive problem with people saying, oh, so-and-so's like him. Not simply because it's a cheap argument, but also when somebody is genuinely, actively dangerous to communities of people, invoking that name, I think, weirdly, removes some of their danger of people today. Now, that might sound weird, and the reason for me saying it is because we beat him. We beat him. He's no longer a threat. His ideology did not persist in a way that reshaped the world as he intended. We won. And I think we should be very careful about invoking him, particularly in regard to people who ideologically are similar to him and his aims, because it allows people to take their foot off the gas, so to speak, in dealing with him, or whomsoever it may be, or whatever group it might be. And recognizing it is not the problem, but putting it away in the box of, oh, well, they're like them, I think it allows us to go, well, we fixed it before. We might always fix it. Remember that.
The world's a different place.
But also, the only
faster than ever and continue to do so.
He wasn't stopped by like good luck and a cuddle. Like there had to be active involvement to do so.
Prolonged, very unpleasant.
Yes.
Active involvement. And those things, I suppose a fair amount of time has passed now, but it takes generations for there's always going to be reverberations from any massive event like that, but for it to be noticeable, really, that there's not many people alive now that remember that period of conflict. A few, of course, but they're very much in the minority. And I suppose it just stops it seeming real, and and so the generations that it was still, this is not coming out right. So for a number of generations, people could still remember, they could still relive it. And now that it's gone, as you say, it's really to go, well, that happened and we sorted it. But we weren't there. We have, no conception. I think one of the things that does help bring the horrendousness of those situations to life. And sometimes I say it's a simple thing. I mean, as a process, I'm sure it's not simple at all. But where people have colorized photographs and video footages from the black and white images that we have of like in the trench and clearing up on the fields and things afterwards where the action's taken place. And even though it's the same footage, somehow colorizing it really brings it to life a lot more. And it's impossible for us to, fortunately for us, it's impossible for us to even think about what that might be like. There might be people in other countries at the moment where there are conflicts that are experiencing some of those things still, but trying to imagine life in the trenches and how demoralizing, cold, wet, lonely, you were hungry, you were thirsty, you were scared. The person who sat next to you could be dead in hours. You could be dead in hours. You don't know what's going on back home. We can't imagine this. And there are people going through that in the world, but for the most of us, so to say, we just bracket it off because we don't have that as an experience, and there aren't people alive like our granddads and things like that who could sit us down and say to us, or someone's nan. My nan, my mum's mum, she lost one of her brothers in the war. She was about 15 and he was maybe 3 or 4 years older than her. And
so a child still, a kid still.
Yeah, exactly. And someone's kid, obviously.
And do you know what else? And you know what else is great? Like, so he's like in his late teens, early 20s, fighting and dying in a war between 2 cousin kings, 3 cousin kings. What's amazing to me is that if he had survived and come home, he would not have been allowed to vote in Great Britain for potentially a number of reasons. He may not have been a property owner. But even if he had been, what would discount him is he would almost certainly have been under 21 and would have been out of the country for a year. You have to be in the country for the year before the election to vote before suffrage. So these people are being sent out to fight and die in someone else's war, and they can't even vote for the people that are sending them out there. Just going to pull up Jem's comment. My uni is rolling out shocking plans in terms of humanities cuts. This is happening across the board. This is, we're already seeing as well schools saying we can't get English teachers or history teachers. No shit, Sherlock. Do you know what that is? Because you have told decades worth of students that those degrees are worthless. So spoiler, you ain't got teachers because they didn't do the degrees.
I just want Steve's put a comment in here, and I might have to ask him to elaborate on that a little bit. He says, Catherine, I'm old enough to have known only about 3 up. I've got Wheezy, Paige, and then Steve.
Hang on. There we are.
I'm old enough to have known that generation as my grandparent. They would have not characterised it in that way. I do not really know him as I was only 7 when he died, but my mum said a lot. So I don't know if you can expand on what you mean. I'm sorry if I'm being thick. By they would not have categorised it in that way.
They wouldn't have talked about the emotional. They would not have talked about the emotional toil, the emotional turmoil of it. They would not have. They also thought about it. They thought about it as the Great War, the war to end all wars. We look back on it now and see, and I think generally, in terms, we've had some wars that have changed our perspective on war as a global society for many of us. And so we look back on the futility of this what was supposed to be a war to end all wars, and obviously it wasn't. Obviously, we know it wasn't. They didn't know it wasn't.
Yeah.
But people came back, and they were what they called shell shocked. They were. It was the start of the first kind of real plastic surgery. There were people that were horrifically injured but alive, and really traumatized, but they didn't characterize it that way because they didn't have the language to express it. People weren't going to therapy in the kind of early 1900s unless they were in an asylum, And then it wasn't what we would call therapy. So they didn't have this. We are a very heavily, even if we've not been to therapy as individuals, the zeitgeist and the linguistics around therapy are so ingrained in us and so much part of our dialect that we are thinking in those ways, in ways that in many ways it's a kind of shift from the past, that we have this lexicon of feeling language and psychology language. I wonder if that's what you mean, Steve. Do please correct me if I've misspoken there.
And you see, this is what I think people are lacking in their understanding of what history is and how it can be taught. Just going back to what we said before, is people perceive it as a list of dates and names and events. And it is that, you have to know who's done what and when and why they did. The treaty of this was designed to, to bring peace between these two nations. Oh, thank you, Chrissy.
Thank you so much, Chrissy.
Yeah. So how do we get past that conception, I suppose, is the question, really. We can create platforms like the one we're doing now, and there are things for kids like Horrible Histories, and I think a lot of historical locations now, like where you're at the Hampton Court Palace and stuff, do a lot more events than perhaps they did. Now, a lot of that obviously is down to the fact that they are trying to raise funds, and you can raise more funds. And if you're just literally, maybe some events are like the one you've been doing more recently, the anniversary of the First Folio one, that's been included obviously in your entry. But sometimes, like the flower show's been on recently at Hampton Court, and so some of those are evenings, and so more people come in, or that they'll have an evening event that's ticketed. So a lot of these extra events are really put in place to generate revenue, because it's the upkeep of places is so monumental. But there's so many more ways. And even when I was a kid, I remember going to Hampton Court for the first time on my 10th birthday, and it was literally just you walked around Hampton Court. And so, there's lots of places doing a lot more now and trying to appeal to a broad range of people. And so, you can go somewhere more than some places you could go to lots of times because they're so big, there's so much to do there. But because there's events, it encourages people to go back and back and back. And they're trying to find different ways to keep people interested with things like that. I just feel like we're a little bit stuck. I feel like there's a puzzle piece missing that will allow us to introduce people to what history has become, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think a big and Steve, just thank you for the response, that that's sort of what you were getting at. I think that's they imagine if you had survived the trenches and the horror and terror that you would have seen, the thought that you weren't a hero, the thought that it made you somehow weaker, the thought that it was futility is just it's unsurvivable. It's unsurvivable without sufficient help. I think this is a good point. One size doesn't fit all children in trying to engage and learn. We need absolutely. We need things like we need costume interpreters. We need jousts. We need audio visual. We need to offer things, and we need to think about some kids are really tactile learners, so object handling needs to come back in full force. Some kids like swords and armor, so that needs to be on offer. Some kids want tapestries and fabrics, and some kids want storytelling. And some kids want to run around in a garden having history somehow kind of just slipped into their brain hole some way, shape or form. And there are options to do all of that stuff. And there are institutions that are experimenting with the way in which we can get museum spaces I think that there's the Young V&A has started doing some really interesting stuff. It's not perfect, and there are choices that have been made that I potentially wouldn't have made, but I think it's really interesting that they have geared it at children from like 1 all the way up, and they've done it on different floors, and it's a space where they can run around, and it's very tactile, but within it there's still very much the glass cabinets. So it's I think a massive thing as well, away from the one size fits all idea. It's something that I've talked about when I've worked on Shakespeare with both school kids, university kids, but also actors. Something I love doing is I love being a text director when it comes to Shakespeare. And that is basically sitting down with actors being like, I don't think you know what those words mean, do you? Let's have a little chitty chat about what that could possibly mean. And one of the things that I love about that, and the way I refer to it, is I'm giving you ownership of this text. And that is, I think, where history education, humanities education needs to look to. It is about working with children to explain something, but then to find ways that they feel that they own it, that they feel that they can walk into Hampton Court Palace or the Tower or Kensington with their parent and tell them a story, and tell them a coherent story, because it's their history, and it's history that they become sharers of history. And when we think about communities before text, when we think about oral cultures and how for so many centuries, millennia, we were oral societies, it is inconceivable to think that adults only were the custodians of that oral tradition. Impossible. It was being passed on to children from infancy, because of course it was. And I watch my son now. I watch him as I read Cinderella. I watch him as he looks at Frozen on the TV. He's obsessed. And he now takes that story into his daycare, into his life with his friends. He wants to put on a cape. He wants to tell the story of Anna and Elsa. He wants to tell about frozen fractals in the sky. Don't think he knows what fractals are, but he wants to recount it through song and movement and speech. And I think if we remember that when we start doing history and start teaching history, it's storytelling. That's what it's always been. And we should approach it that way with young children.
Yeah.
That it's not about learning a litany of dates. Tell the story.
Because that's what it is at the end of the day. It's a story, just like, it was what would be in Hello Magazine, if there was Hello Magazine in the Middle Ages or the medieval periods. Lots of people sort of making comments along the lines of institutions really just not having the money to put on anything but the absolute basics, like to get outsiders in, to have costumed interpreters, to find lots of different ways to present the same information. That's certainly very, very true. I don't know, that's definitely the case here in the UK. I can't obviously speak for other countries, but that is absolutely the case here. And I think someone else, I can't remember who it was, I'm so sorry, but said that teachers just don't have, that they're not able to be as creative as they'd like to be, because you have to teach this, and you've only got this amount of time to do it in. That they just don't have the option to be as creative as they could be, and that they'd like to be.
Yeah.
And that is obviously very frustrating. But it's so now you have to stick to the curriculum, otherwise it causes you just get into trouble, and the school then gets into trouble, and it's not.
But here's the thing. Imagine with me. Just let's play the imagination game. Imagine if at your 3 or 4 or 5-year-old's birthday party, rather than having somebody dress up as Spider-Man or Elsa or whoever else, all of which is super cool. Imagine if you went, actually, we're going to get Mary Anning to come and tell stories about fossils and dinosaurs. And so somebody comes, and I have lots of friends that dress up as Mary Anning. I've done it, that come and they present as Mary Anning, and they talk all about fossils and her fossil hunting. And they talk about the Natural History Museum and all that kind of stuff. And they do activities with the children on like drawing out fossils. all the same stuff can be done with historical figures. It can all happen. And I think that could be really fun. Is that we can open that world up a little bit more. We can make edutainment used to be a dirty word, but increasingly there are that is a massive industry, and people want to be educated and entertained. Edutainment is where things are going for adults. So what? And Horrible Histories is the example.
Tara says, I want that birthday party.
That'd be so cool. I want that birthday party. Absolutely. Pretty Pick talking
we still
about
get cake. There is still cake.
Pretty Pick talking about a tribal elder coming to elementary schools to educate kids about culture and history. Exactly. This is it's storytelling. It's being the possessor of a story and being willing to hand it over. Well, friends, if I just, you know what? Interestingly, I do have some friends who do education sessions and they cover the period they go from the Egyptians all the way through to the moon landing.
Wow, that's quite a spectrum.
Well, maybe they go from prehistory. They may even now go from prehistory all the way through to the moon landing, and they are available on Zoom. So you can have a video into your party. Check them out. They're called Zoom Through History. They are my lovely friends. They built this company during the lockdown, and they are absolutely fabulous.
I don't know.
We've got
We'll drag the children in, kicking and screaming.
Yeah. But let's remember, as parents and adults, we do that to them all the time. Are you telling me that all kids really enjoy being out on a muddy field playing soccer, or as we call it, football, in the absolute pissing rain? No, they don't enjoy it. They'd rather be at home with their binky watching Frozen. But we do it enough with them, they start to love it, and they believe that we all indoctrinate our kids to like the stuff we like. So why not history? Raven, yes, it is called Zoom Through History. They are my lovely friends. They are also the people who started that branch of the company. They are also the people who created Monarchs Anonymous, which is something was involved in on YouTube. Hopefully we're doing another series, but that's a sitcom that we did over lockdown, and I had a lovely time doing it.
It was funny.
Yes, this is Monarchs Anonymous. Same folks. They are super busy people, getting museum contracts all left, right, and centre. So alas, they have not had a chance to work on season 3, but we are having a chat about it, and hopefully soon. They are great.
Loved it. That's what we're saying. Love Monarchs Anonymous. There you go. So I've just emailed.
It was a good time. It was, and I really hope we come back for season 3. Before we finish, do we want to talk about? Let's do a little bit of shade. What is the worst thing about working in this industry, or about the community? And not you guys, obviously. Not you lovely regulars who don't come and tell us off for swearing in the comment section. Not you. But what's the thing what really grinds your gears, Catherine? Come on.
Oh, I love how you're throwing this open to me first. So if it goes down really badly, you can just throw me under the Winnebago.
That's the plan.
That's the plan. Okay, it's Pretty Pick. We're perfect. Yeah, there you go.
You are indeed.
I think
you are a delight, Raven. We're all a delight.
We are a delight. I think
all the regulars. This is not about you. This is not directed towards the regulars. This is directed towards the people that find one of our videos and decide to have feelings about it. Feelings. They get into their feelings and they make their feelings our problem.
What's difficult about working in history?
Paige, we're not angels. That's the point. That's why we're all here.
Don't try and kid yourself.
That's why we love you, because we're all slightly depraved.
What's difficult about working in history? I think I think some of these things are things that really genuinely apply to everything. So there are, because I said earlier, it's not a big community. If there's anybody that creates a wave, it's quite widely felt. And it's like we all know who some of those people are, and some of our friends, if they watch this, they will all know who those people are as well. And it can get
And
a
if you're
little
on Twitter, you know who these people are.
don't go
They
on
just
Twitter.
they cannot
Christ.
they can't not.
They
They
can't
can't
not,
not
yeah.
fucking say something shitty.
There's and because there's a little bit of a, and again, this can apply to a lot of things. Now, Kat and I had this discussion about, and you'll have to come and join in the whole thing and get the whole thing to find out exactly more when it goes out with Shakespeare, the Shakespeare project at the end, Catherine's first folio. But we had a discussion about what I felt by learning Shakespeare, all the different things I felt I got from it. And one of them was, it makes me feel like I'm a better person. So we had a sort of bit of a discussion around that. But I do think, and it was something that you kind of hit the nail on the head with, I do think that one of the things about history, and it will apply to other things as well, it's not singular in that capacity at all, is that there are some people that come into it with a real air of smugness, who just like really think that because they can sit here and tell you about stuff at the posh end of society, like, you know, I can talk about, you know, like all the protocol that surrounds the coronation, for example. That's posh, isn't it? And that's what people with lots of money and education do. So I think there can be a real air of snobbiness about history and working in history, but not just people who kind of work in it, you know, people who come on to, you know, you had what was that one you had the other day about Shakespeare's Marlowe, or Marlowe Shakespeare?
Oh yeah. So on my hang on. Do you know what? I'm gonna read the
It was
comment.
it's just that kind of, people will pick a hill to die on, and they will not
So
just die, they will slaughter everybody else, because they will be so convinced that they know that this king did this at this time, or that they are the direct descendant of, genealogy. That's another thing that pisses me off about history. But people are so
yeah.
convinced and so moralistic, and so like, well, I know this. If somebody makes a little bit of a mistake in one of their posts, or someone doesn't know something, or someone has a different viewpoint, even though that's not necessarily right or wrong, that's just an alternative that they're postulating, people are just like, no, 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 and they're absolutely. And then you've given examples of academics, there's been some over portraiture. There was a portrait of Mary the First, and people, or maybe I can't remember the exact details, but people lost their minds over that, and it got really
Yeah.
awful.
It gets really nasty. It gets really nasty.
Yeah, it does. You know, and yeah, horrible. And there's people that have
So the
fallen
comment
out. They have a
I
different
made
view of Anne Boleyn, and oh
I
god.
made a video about Isabella of France, right? This is on my channel. Now, I am sharing this because I think this comment is funny. Rude, but funny. And I've also responded to it and left it there. This individual said, how strange. We are watching a middle-aged lady, well, fuck you very much, read the history of Edward II and Isabella of France. Ma'am, spelt wrong, you are not an actress, weirdly capitalized, to read Marlowe's Shakespeare English. Stopped video, not subscribed video, 642. At 4.48 psychosis hits. I don't know what's this. So anyway, my response, and I'm proud of it, was I mean, ... I am a current member of the Performers Union Equity. And as you are calling it Marlowe Shakespeare English, I do question your expertise in the matter. As to the middle-aged description, I guess it's time for a new skin cream. Thanks for the tip.
But that's the thing, it's not just people's insistence that they know everything and that you're wrong, or the person who's also made a comment on something, it must also be wrong. It's that there's sometimes quite a lot of, because there's a moral superiority about it that comes with rudeness, That
and this
comes
rightness,
with
this desire to be right. Like, well, you know, anybody who talks about the truth in history, really, tell me more. The factionalism that forms as if it's like some kind of weird royal court. Like, we aren't serving the monarch, babe. It's and when people think that because they disagree with your point of view or your interpretation of the known historical event as they stand, which is as far as we get to a truth, we know the dates and people that might have been there, and then we interpret that. We interpret motivations. We interpret what's going on. And we fill in the gaps. That's history. That's the practice of history. That's just not a listing of dates. The notion that there is one truth that is immutable fundamentally misunderstands the practice of history that has gone on since the medieval period. Like, that is, we have been doing history since we've been doing writing. So there is no one truth, and people get really aggressive. I made a video laying out the points of the authorship debate around Shakespeare, and let me tell you that taught me that I'm not fucking talking about that again. Because the comments that I got were so offensive and so unkind, and I was a little baby YouTuber then. I wasn't the hard hatchet faced bitch I am now. But yeah, some of the comments were really, really upsetting and really made me really upset. And I was like, I don't want to read this anymore. And that was having made that video. That was one of the reasons that I limited the time I spent reading my comments. I have to make sure I'm in a really good mental state before I do it, because it made me really sad. And literally all I was doing was laying out the different points of the authorship debate. And then I just went, you know, and here's what I believe. Based upon the evidence that's available to me, I think this thing. And that if you want to disagree with me, that's cool. If you've got a different viewpoint, we can disagree, but you don't have to call me an obvious Masonic shill and then talk about the way I look. Doesn't have to happen.
I don't know how to pronounce this. Hang on, it's just gone to the
Where
screen.
are you?
Just above, so Wheezy's got all the little laughing emoji, then Barbara, and above there.
Okay. Yes, you went to a talk by a famous Tudor historian, nastiest human being you've seen in a long time.
I mean, we want to know who that is now.
Well, I definitely want to know who that is. Definitely want to know who that is. I definitely want to know.
I can hazard a guess, but I better not say. I'm going to put it to Kat in the private chat.
What? So is it hang on, question. Is it a recent talk? Because then I might be able to Google who's been talking recently.
Oh dear. So yeah, I put it in the private chat, Kat. See if you think it could be plausible. I daren't say it out loud.
I can't see the private chat. I can't. Oh, hang on, it's there.
That was the person that immediately came to mind.
I mean, that's where my mind went too. I'm not gonna lie. And male, old. That's where my mind went. I'm not. You could probably do the math there. What we?
Tara, can you see what Tara's put? I love your content, all three of you, on your own on this channel, and I can't get my head around if people don't like it, why be nasty? You take your time out of your lives to educate strangers for the love. And I think that's the thing, and we've talked about this before as well, is that just, and again, this is not just history. People in on the socials create all sorts of content, and it's always like, I'm going to come on here and I'm going to moan and I'm going to say that I don't like this and I don't like that. Fuck off.
Look, I get it. I get it, right?
You don't have to like me or what I do or anybody else. It's cool. Nothing or no one is for everybody. We all know that. But we're putting, people put this stuff out there for free. That's what you do. We accept in history, you have to do a lot of stuff for free, especially to start off with. Most of what I do at the moment, I'm not earning that much money from, because you're putting it in now, and that's just how it works. And authors, history authors, So much of the interviews and the things that you see with them, they don't get paid for. And this is something that Philippa and I are looking at, because when we do the online history festivals and things, even though it comes out of the profit, because a lot of people will do those things and not pay the authors or the speakers that come in, because they'll say, oh, well, you're using it for publicity and to sell your books and stuff. We said no, even though that money's technically coming out of our pocket, we could pocket that money. We want to pay the people that are taking part in this, because we want to stop underlying, what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't what I'm looking for, undervaluing or devaluing that, you know, we don't.
Yeah.
One of the reasons it's so hard to make money as somebody working in history is because so many people expect you to do things for free, and you know you have
for
to do
exposure.
that. If you write, yeah, exactly. If you write a book, you know you're going to have to do some signings, and the only income you might get is what books you sell, or you know you're going to have to go on.
I'm going to say the words "mind of a tyrant," and if you Google that, it will tell you who it is.
Oh, okay, right. Yes, I'm staying out of it. But
that is who people are talking about. Pretty Pick. Remember to pay creators. Look, I'm a big believer in this, but exposure doesn't pay my bills. Up the chat. That sounds
fun.
Yeah, up your chat. But higher up the chat, people were asking whether there was still sexism in history, and certainly in academia, there is a big lot of sexism because the industry of academia is not set up to support female scholars, particularly not female scholars who want to, in quotes, have it all, namely a family. And the reason why I say that is, having been through it, most people are going to be completing their doctorate in their earliest mid to late 20s, right? For many people, you're looking at your 30s if you do bang, 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 BA, MA, PhD. After your doctorate, the chances of you getting a tenure track, as you call it in the States, but like a job where you get paid through the summer and have maternity leave straight out of your PhD, at the moment, to my knowledge, is infinitesimally, yeah? Is that how you say that word? Maybe? You know what I mean.
Know how to say it, but now I don't, because I'm thinking about it.
Infinitesimal. Yeah, right. The odds are really, really stacked.
Tiny amount.
Yeah, male or female. What happens is you get a postdoctoral place. That might be research, it might be teaching, and they will probably last for 3 years. In most cases, in the humanities, I'm talking about the humanities. I'm talking about what I've experienced and what I know from my friends. In most cases, you will be paid an hourly rate, like you're a contractor, which means you aren't paid through holidays or through summer. Bearing in mind that many universities are teaching for like 24, 26 weeks a year, that is the amount you're paid. You are paid for those. On top of that, because you're paid for the courses you teach, and you're paid well per course, per lesson. But what that doesn't take into account is the prep and then the marking. By the time you figure out the hours that you have done for that money, you are earning less than minimum wage, with no access to sick pay or maternity leave. None. In fact, your best time to have a baby is during a funded PhD, because then you'll get mat leave. So most people will do at least 2 of those temporary placements that will take you to 6 years postdoc. So you're looking at your early 30s, mid 30s, getting on for your late 30s. If you then don't get a permanent job, what then? You're going to get the permanent job and go on maternity leave in the first 6 months? Or are you just not going to have kids? Because that's the option. Those are the options. You either you leave academia, which is what I did. You delay having children potentially indefinitely, or you try and get a full-time job as quickly as possible and get knocked up immediately. So yeah, it is sexist. It's because and I don't even know if I think it's just institutionally problematic. And on top of that, in terms of public history, yes, it's also sexist, because we know that people who are buying books, which is what drives the work and the money of a public historian, people who are buying, women will read books by men and women. Men statistically won't buy books with a female author's name on the title, on the cover. So that means that you're the people buying your books, there's just less of them if you happen to have a female name, obviously female name. So there is those things, or I think to be working in history that might be classified as women's history. So that is happening. That is happening.
Right. Raven says, "Can we have a hint what our tea will be?" Did we do S? So next one is S, isn't it? Thomas Seymour. Fuck if I know. Oh, hang on. I'm private chatting. Well, we can't tell you. We don't tell you, do we, until the week before?
Well, we're not. Hang on, babe. Because we're not here next week.
No.
So what's next? Wait, what's the next letter? Oh God, alphabets are hard.
S. So we've just done Richard Rich. So S is Thomas Seymour.
Oh yeah. Oh, S.
But I've just put in private chat. This is someone that we'd said we were going to do, and that's how we made the tea.
I don't know if that's what we've agreed on. So tea we have to hold off on because I think we may still be in the debate.
Yeah. We don't normally tell you until it's going to be the week before, do we? Anyway, so Thomas, but no, we're not here next week. And then the week after that, I think, is Thomas Seymour. Is it the week after that? Is Thomas Seymour?
Yes.
Is.
S is next. S is next. No. I think.
Sorry, Raven, we're keeping you hanging.
S is next. It is Thomas Seymour.
Who's lovely.
He's not. We talked about that last time, didn't we, as well? He's a bell end. He's a bell end.
He came up quite a bit when we talked about Elizabeth, didn't he? He comes up fairly regularly.
Yeah, he's a bloody rotter. That's why. He's a wrong un.
It would be a bit hard to do this without mentioning him.
Facts. Absolute truth and facts. When people, you could give me a letter and be like, what letter comes after blah blah? I'm going from A and I'm getting there, and I'm telling you, if you think that you can just give me a random letter out of the 26 that live in our alphabet, if you think you can be the person that does that, and I will tell you what comes next without going either in my or in my face box through it. Nah, mate.
Now you've got a little one as well who's going to learn to read. You have to know all the sounds phonetically as well, and so you have to know how to go abacadabra. So you have to do it like that, but then you also have all the digraphs and the trigraphs and things like that. So there's 26 letters, so they have 26 names, but I think it's either 42 or 44 sounds that are made phonically. So like you have f for F, but you also have PH makes a f sound as well. So you've got all that.
I'm not going to be able to help Gabriel with that because I am now currently dead. Sorry, I can't help. I'm dead. Deceased.
Auntie Catherine will do it via Zoom.
You will, because I'm fucking not, because that is outside of my pay grade. That is outside of my pay grade. I can do
Jolly Phonics, Tara, yes, are absolutely brilliant. And a lot of schools, if they don't actually use Jolly Phonics, they use something that's very, very similar to that.
I can do the alphabet where it's words. The Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo.
Isn't that called the phonetic alphabet? Is that called the phonetic alphabet?
Hotel, India, Juliet.
Yeah, it's the first letter. So the letter is the name of the letter, like A, B, C, D is a name, and abacadabra is obviously the sound or the phonic. So that's why you have B because Bravo. So that's how you know how to pronounce it. If you're not sure what the phonic is, think of a word that it starts with, and that will tell you.
See, I know the Alpha Bravo one because my mum was in the motor trade, and so when someone would give me, like, I'd answer the phone and they'd talk about their car, they'd give me their And I still do it now. Like when someone wants my number plate, I do it.
Yeah.
Foxtrot,
So
yeah,
David knows. Foxtrot, Ostra. So yeah. So learning to read. I remember when I was helping Oscar to learn to read. I remember thinking, I don't know how to read because it was so complicated. I don't actually know how I can read. But once you've done it once, and obviously, well, Lucas is very proficient. He's got a high reading age for his age. So he picks stuff up quite quickly. But actually, like you just got to get around your head. And then once you understand the phonics and sort of like how words blend, you've done most of it, but then you've just got to learn the children to identify the anomalies, really, and what you call the alien words. So the words that don't blend, that don't sound out. So that's something, sight words. So then you have to sort of learn, because some things will work and some won't. And there are some things that we just know aren't words, even though we couldn't describe why they're not.
No.
I'm not helping, am I?
No, I don't like it.
I don't like it.
I don't like it. I don't want to. I don't like it. I'll teach him boxing. I'm going to teach him boxing. That's what I do. I will take him out with the speed bag and the pads, and we will spar. That's what I'm going to do. That'll be my job. That will be my job. The French speaker can do grammar and words. I've just seen Marilyn's comment that you've just found my other channel that you've gone from History After Dark to reading the past. That is an unusual direction of travel.
School versus
I like it.
Only. We've been very well behaved and quite serious.
People have said that. Paige, we're very well behaved. We deserve a cookie. We deserve 6. Who has 1 cookie? Don't trust people who eat 1 cookie.
I've already had 3 cookies today.
I want a cookie. I want to dip it in my tea. I want to dunk it. I want a soggy biscuit.
Oh.
And we're there. And we have arrived.
Soggy biscuit. I was having this conversation with Philippa when we had our weekly meeting.
What, soggy biscuit?
No, although that is Philippa's. That's Philippa's thing. It's not. Well, it really might be, but to our knowledge, it's not. Back to no kink shaming. So, obviously how you all unfairly ripped me for not drinking tea.
Because you're a pervert.
I don't see how not drinking tea makes you a pervert. But anyway, well, I realised occasionally. No, that was it. We were talking about different types of biscuits, not soggy ones. Rich tea. Hands up who likes a nice rich tea biscuit. Yeah. And actually, every now and again, I will make a cup of tea, no sugar, or maybe a little bit of milk, and I will have a cup of tea with rich tea biscuits. But I don't drink the tea. I just dip the biscuits in the tea. And so you have to get it right, don't you? Because otherwise they
You're like one of those kids who ate eggy soldiers and just dipped the bread in the yolk and then didn't eat the egg.
Yeah,
I was that kid.
Much so. I was that kid. And she said, "Oh, do you do that quite a lot then?" I was like, about once every 2 years." Because you don't want to go wild and crazy, do you? So yes. So I know it's not like having a cup of tea, but it involves a cup of tea.
But let's be honest, there is only one king of biscuits.
Our faves.
Yeah, Marks and Spencer's, round, proud, milk, chocolate. So it's a round biscuit, and the biscuit is barely even. It's a whisper of a biscuit, not a whisper chocolate bar, but a whisper of a biscuit inside, thick milk chocolate with a hole in the middle. It's got a non-fattening center, and it is delightful.
It is. They're amazing.
They are the
kings of dark chocolate and white chocolate ones as well.
They're no. It's got to be milk chocolate. Don't try and fob me off with those other basic bitch biscuits. I want a milky round in my mouth. Get it? What are they called? They're not called roundies.
Marks and Spencer's chocolate roundels.
Round? Is it a roundel? That sounds architectural.
It does.
It does. You're not
Does.
wrong there. We're furious.
Biscuits. Marks and Spencer's biscuits. What did you learn today? Oh, I learned.
Marks and Spencer. Bugger off. Talk amongst yourselves, won't you?
Sorry. We're just ignoring you because
this is what we do. This is what our conversations look like. We just suddenly talk about something and go, what the fuck's happening?
There you go.
Shit,
there you go. Marks and Spencer's extremely chocolatey milk rounds. I don't think you can see that.
Yeah, we're there. We're there.
Marks and Spencer's extremely chocolatey milk rounds. There we go.
They've changed the packaging. If you can get access to these, they're like crack. It's a good job they don't put many in a packet, because you could don't buy 2 packs, because they won't. You'll think to yourself, I'll put 1 pack in the cupboard. You won't. You would be lying to yourself if you think you're going to put one. Only get 1 pack at a time, because otherwise they will have to cut you out of your house, because you will just be there for days.
Oh dear, leading people down the path of temptation. Yes,
it is. Do you know what? It's such a good biscuit, and the chocolate is so chocolatey, and it's so amazing that it's almost a kind of erotic experience.
You need a cigarette after you got one of them.
Yeah, because it has that sort of. It's like a workout as well, because it's so much chocolate.
It is, yeah, claggy, a bit claggy,
but in the best way.
Yeah. And they just, I think that's what it is. You see other chocolate biscuits, it's a biscuit with a bit of chocolate on it, but that is a.
This is not. This is a chocolate. This is essentially a chocolate that has had a biscuit snuck into it. There is a biscuit hiding in the midst of the chocolat.
Everyone wants one of those now. And
right, we've now just sort of blanked out. We've both just entered a kind of chocolate erotic coma. So we should, I think, as we're an hour and a half in, we should wrap this up.
Chocolate
erotic. When we talk about biscuits, we're not talking about a thing that some Americans put in gravy, but white gravy, I don't know, because your biscuits are our scones,
something like that. Yeah,
something like that.
Something like that. Biscuits.
I think biscuits are like a scone, but we're talking about it's not a cookie
and things.
Because cookies here are only chocolate chip. Biscuit means cooked twice.
No. Haven't you not had those other types of cookies that I now can't remember? Oatmeal and raisin cookies. They're well nice. Yeah. And if you Marks and Spencer's, same place, they have a range of posh ones that are like, honey and pecan and all things like that. Nice.
Wait, what? Scones aren't hard.
Depends who cooks them.
What? Scones are hard? No, scones are blub 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 blub. They're soft bread.
Well, no, they can be a bit like firmer on the outside. They have a sort of level of crust to them. Liz, yes, scones are only hard if you do it wrong. Some things are hard if you do it right.
I had so many smutty thoughts. I was like, can't get one out. Like there's just my synapses have fried with filth.
Oh dear.
Oh, now we're getting into rock cakes. We're going to get in a minute. We're going to be down
not hard.
We're going to be down the Welsh cake route. Soft.
Cranberry orange scones. Stem ginger. I think scones look like dainties. Well, it's all right.
Do you know things?
I know some of them.
Go on,
I know some of them. I always can't remember the Substack thing, but it will be in our link tree on Instagram. So obviously we're not on Instagram.
It's History After Dark Hub at Substack.
Substack. Shall we say com?
One of the other.
Anyway, if you go onto Instagram, it is on our link tree. So somebody did mention about Substack, that in the comments earlier. I can't remember who it was now. But yeah, so it is a hub where you can put all sorts of different stuff. At the moment, really, it's just kind of the links to the lives and things like that. But we have so much stuff that we want to do. We have to try and do it little bits at a time because we're all trying to fit so much different stuff into what we're doing. So over time, there will be more and more things that go into Substack. You can sign up for our Substack and it is free. And then you will always get all the information coming into you, whatever we have done. We have also got so thank you so much today for the super chats and everything. Yeah, on our link tree as well is our merch. The merch is available on Teespring, TEE Spring. We have various different things now. We have those things, all sorts of different items. We have the war bonus stuff. We have no feet for free. We have bits and pieces. So that could, yeah, Teespring History After Dark. Again, I think that's on the link tree. I know, of course, obviously everybody is on Instagram, but so if you just go down to Teespring, you should be able to find us on there. We also have buymeacoffee.com. So buymeacoffee.com/had podcast, where you can go down and put towards the Winnebago Fund. You can also buy
Catherine Fund.
You can also buy one-to-one sessions with us, and you can join Close Friends. Now, Close Friends is over on, it's a thing that's over on Instagram, but you have to go to buymeacoffee.com/had podcast in order to join our Close Friends, where basically every now and again we will send you something really random, which is sometimes history related, but it's normally a little bit odd, random, slightly disturbing, but generally funny. So that's what you get for being on our Close Friends. If anyone in here is on Close Friends, in the comments, please say something nice. Say something nice. What else do we have? Past Problems Post bags. Obviously, when it's only been the two of us, we haven't been doing Past Problems Post bag. But if you have any historically related dilemmas, please send them to historyafterdark2021@gmail.com. historyafterdark2021. And the Widows of Lancaster, of which Kat is currently one, will come to your aid with our amazing problem-solving skills that normally involve killing somebody.
Poison
or fire. Yes. What else? I think that might be it. We are not here next week. Just be désolé. But if you are on Instagram, if you're not on Instagram, do go down and follow us there. It's history.after.dark. And there's a load of, like, we started here on YouTube in November, but there's a load of old episodes on there from all sorts of randomness. So a good sort of year's worth probably before that. So go down and check out some of that information there. If you're not on Instagram, it is really easy to set up an account if you want to do that.
We're definitely here the week after. Definitely here the week after.
Yes, so the week after, all three of us are back, and it's Thomas Seymour, who's a hero in the Git world.
Dickhead.
Yes. Another one of Kat's favourite.
That man boils my piss, I tell you.
He does. I don't think many. I can only think of one person that really likes him, and that's Rebecca Larson. And I don't put you two in the same space when it comes to Thomas Seymour. So Raven, we definitely here the week after. Yes, but all things being equal, we will be here 2 weeks from today, whatever date that is.
God, yes.
26th. So I think that's everything. That wasn't done as smoothly as it normally was. If you are here on YouTube, thank you. Of course you are, because that's where you're watching.
I love you. I love you so much. You are my favourite. You are the best. I love you. You're doing you're doing amazing, sweetie. You're doing amazing, sweetie. If you're here on the YouTube, thank you. If you're watching us live, thank you. If you're watching us on the playback, apologies. I'm glad you stuck it out this long. Please do.
Please do likes.
Do emojis, do comments, do likes. Make sure you're subscribed. Hit the bell icon. Select all in the drop down that will appear. That will allegedly tell you when we are next going live. YouTube sometimes does it. And those are words.
Pretty pic. I'm watching it from your house.
That's creepy. Thanks. Well done. Well done. That's an upsetting comment to finish on.
As I used to say at the end of Crime Watch in the 90s, don't have nightmares.
Don't have nightmares. I'm gonna count us out. That's a 3, a 2, Oh, one. Behave yourselves,
No, don't.
or just don't get
Or
caught.
do. Yeah, yeah.
Bye.
Carefully. Just behave carefully.